Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Star Wars Minute. It's your daily show in which we analyze, scrutinize, and celebrate solo a Star Wars story 1 minute at a time. I'm Alex Robinson from alexrobinson.fun.
I'm Pete the Retailer from PeteTheRetailer.com.
And I'm Ken Plume from KenPlume.com.
Welcome back, Ken. Thanks for closing out the week with us here.
Hey, this has been a joy to catch up with you all and have a reason to rewatch Solo.
Oh, well, we're happy to have you here. Minute 25. That's
you
what
looked down and away when you said that. I don't know how sincere you were.
Happy to have you.
That was...
we're,
I don't want to look at you anymore. It's been a whole week of you.
Anyway, minute number 25 starts off with the Beast barking at Han as the AT hauler appears to be leaving. And ends a minute later with the AT hauler arriving on Vandor at sunrise. Vandor at sunrise.
Vandor at sunrise.
The AT hauler does sound like something out of Cannonball Run.
Sure.
Like that's the vehicle they chose to do the run with.
So Vandor's
AT
another planet, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't think that this would be that an AT hauler would be capable of traveling at light speed.
Well, you think it gets... You think it, like, they load up the hauler? I guess that makes sense. If they put all the walkers inside a Star Destroyer and put the haulers,
right.
The things to carry the walkers, would also go in the Star
Right,
Destroyer.
it just gets like it's basically one of those like loading dock things, where,
right?
Like a pallet
right.
hauler, where it just.
You think a forklift can't go into hyperspace?
I don't know. Just, but you know,
maybe it attached to one of those like a giant version of the ring that the Jedi ships had to use.
Yeah.
To go to hyperspace.
I could see there being a sort of all-purpose ring, like they must, like almost like an adapter. If your ship isn't capable of light speed, you can kind of connect it to this thing. If you
but wasn't this the crux of the whole thing? Was to secure that AT hauler to use for this heist?
Right. Yeah. That was why they came to this.
So,
area.
or Vandor is not that far from Minbin.
Maybe.
And so they didn't have to go to hyperspace with it. This was
300.
just to use at the hall, and then
Yeah,
what is was it subspace travel? What do they call it when it's
impulse power?
No, it's not impulse power. I know that for sure. That is purely Star Trek.
I don't think they ever say it in Star Wars.
Should we cut in the sublight engine?
Sublight speed.
Yeah.
Let's
so
see.
maybe it's a local trip.
Vandor's in the Slew sector.
The Slew sector.
The Slew sector. Beware of Slew sector.
Slewfoot Sue.
While Mimban is in the Circarpus sector.
Oh, well, that clears that up.
Circarpus sector.
So
where are my star maps?
To each other.
Well, Slew sector's in the mid-rim, and the Circarpus sector is in the expansion region.
So it's not local.
Sounds like we need an Easter egg for this plot hole.
I think they're far away. Yeah, as far as I can tell, they're not right over near each other.
Unless it is capable
it's in the slice
of hyperspace travel. Maybe it just is.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. They wouldn't have stolen it if it wasn't, so let's assume that it is.
Ship's guide. Do we get a ship's guide?
Standard galactic grid. We got its grid coordinates. Typical, again, I don't mean to turn this into...
This is the kind of thing we need Pablo to hand wave. Where is he?
I don't know. I don't mean to keep trashing Wikipedia, but...
Whoa.
Doing, like...
You don't care who you insult, do you?
When you click on grid coordinates, and it tells you, oh, standard galactic grid. It was a reference system, so you could, locate a galactic point by grid coordinates. No images whatsoever in the listing for grid coordinates. You think that's where you would have, like, a map or something. You know what I mean? But no.
Well, I'm looking at the AT hauler pages in the official guide to see if it lists.
Like you assume something about like latitude. The image for latitude would show a map of what latitude conveys.
Or something.
Yeah.
But no.
It's just talking about how strong it is.
I think we're just going to have to write this off as part of the. Howard,
I guess
Lord
it does. It does have
Synchronicity.
Hyperspace, because its systems are largely automated to the extent that the navicomputer contains only a select group of Imperial outposts as pre-calculated hyperspace jump destinations.
Now, there you go. It says that specifically. There you go.
It does.
Correction, no prize awarded.
The Empire also mistakenly believes that the security restriction will deter thieves.
So there must be an Imperial base. Obviously there is an Imperial base.
So basically you can request these things to like, well, I need more AT haulers out here. Can you send some more? And they just automate delivery.
Oh, nice.
Like, Galactic Prime. Well,
I put Mimban into Google Maps to see if that would help, and it is a
Mimban.
It's is this a town, a region in East Java, Indonesia?
Can we see Han on Street View?
Mimban. It's 2 A's, so it's not quite spelled the same, but Mimban. And what was the other one? Forestria. What's the
Vandor?
Vandor.
Vandor.
Evo Vandor from Ghostbusters.
Vandor LLC. It's a home improvement store on Main Street, just outside of Provo, Utah.
So this is like a product placement.
There you go. So it's in Salt Lake City. It's not
Welcome
even
to Star Wars Minute's new sponsor, Vandor
LLC in Salt Lake City. If you're ever in Vandor.
Are they like the West Coast version of Caldor?
No, Caldor is deceased. Surely they're dead by now.
Absolutely. Well, interestingly, it's not that far from Vandor in Salt Lake City to the Rocky Mountains in southern Colorado, which is what the general look and feel of Vandor is based on. The Kasdan spent a lot of time vacationing in southern Colorado, despite, according to John Kasdan, the fact that none of them skied. They would just go to the mountains and hang out.
They just love haunted hotels.
Exactly.
Did they write basically the script based on like, oh, you know what? I want to go to Colorado and I want to go to this other place.
Yeah,
They
it was a James Bond.
I thought you were saying like all Star Wars and no play makes a Kasdan a dull boy.
Or an Adam Sandler movie. They're just like, where do you want to go next? Let's write a movie there. Yes, that was they would spend their Christmases in Colorado. Nobody skied, but then they were like, oh, it would be a nice place to go. And I have to agree that it is a nice place to go after scene after scene after scene of dark places where you can't tell what the heck's going on. All of a sudden you're flying and the sun is out, you're getting mountains, everything's white and bright. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, looks so fun. So cheery, so holidays. So
exactly.
Christmassy.
They're gonna go have Christmas.
Well, before we get to Vandor, at the beginning of the minute,
get to Vandor,
we see Beckett is considering taking on Han Solo and the Beast as part of his crew, and Val is all like,
you have to sing it. Han Solo and the Beast.
That's what they should have called the movie. You shouldn't find out his name is Chewbacca until like the third movie. Like they refer to him as the Beast.
The shower scene should be near the end when they finally wash him off. It's like, oh, it's Chewbacca.
He's just a name.
Oh, because it reveals his name tag.
Yeah.
So Val is anti Han and Chewie. What do you think's up with that?
Well, is she right? I'm forgetting the details of the Conveyex job, but do they not like if they had not included Han and Chewie? Would Val still be alive? Like if they, I don't know if would they pick up some other people? Would they do something else? Like would there? Here Val says, no, don't do it. And is she right? Is this one of Beckett's poor decisions that leads to her death? Or, as we theorized, she fakes her death. Is this her establishing kind of an out clause, basically?
By sort of pointing at something that she doesn't think he should do, like that's going to be a mistake, and then later on,
is it all reverse psychology? Knowing how to play Beckett, like, well, if I say they shouldn't be on here, he's an idiot, so he's going to say, sure,
yeah.
Or is it that? Oh no, but she doesn't want them to. I don't know. Yeah, once you get into the reverse psychology,
but doesn't she also just very clearly say to him later that maybe you should be concerned about Enfys Nest and plan for that potential? Like,
Right.
it just sounds like he doesn't listen to anything anyone says.
Right. But why does she why doesn't she want them on the...
Well, I mean, as far as they all know, he's just some Imperial
Yeah,
running
that's
with a muddy Wookiee
Yeah.
out in the open. They're complete strangers at this
Yeah.
point,
There's some
regardless.
street urchin and his wet dog want to come with us.
And they have
So-
just lifted an Imperial vehicle, a
Yeah.
carrier. So not exactly the thing you should be inviting on unknown.
So Han and Chewie are the Jar Jar Binks of the movie,
Yeah.
and they're Qui-Gon. They're like, oh, I'm going to bring this...
And we've seen
another-
all
picked
the
up
physical
another-
comedy showing that they are the Jar
Jar
Jar.
Binks.
Yeah.
Oh
We
my
just
God.
had that chain scene of them running in opposite directions, which
What
is
the
pure
li-
Jar Jar.
What is the line? Obi-Wan says another pathetic... Are we picked up another pathetic life form?
Yeah.
Does he say something like that? So yeah, it's a similar thing. Maybe Beckett is constantly picking up street urchins and
Right.
drifters.
But we didn't get
And
the
so-
scene where Anakin and Jar Jar are showering.
Yes, we did not get that one.
Yeah.
Which is the big takeaway from this minute.
Yeah.
Yes.
But Rio is very pro bringing them on because he says you'll never sleep better than curled up in a Wookiee's lap.
Hmm.
And
But he says it with such longing.
it does sound nice.
And for all we know, we don't know what happens in the time it takes to get to Vandor. That might have happened.
Yeah,
He might have
Yeah.
gotten one more go at a Wookiee's lap.
I hope so.
Well, speaking of things that happen that we don't see, do you think that Chewie finally got to eat? We were going to look for when does he actually get to eat here? Do you think they? It seems like they undo the chains. They break the chains, just like what was that, Dakin?
Never
And
break
then,
the chains.
Then does he get to eat anything?
I
Maybe
wonder.
it's the remains of the missing crew member.
Hmm.
Korso. Yeah, I wonder because I don't. I mean-
Are these transports heavily provisioned?
Yeah, that does
Like,
come
there's-
with like
there's no-
rations.
There's a shower for some reason.
I mean, there's no replicate. Well, I mean, there's no replicators in Star Wars. So, are there
They
just
might have like emergency
rations
or something.
or?
Plus, the crew might have had stuff with them.
Oh, were they eating their lunches just like their significant others had packed for them for this
Oh, so he got
military
he
excursion?
got to eat Corso's lunch. Oh,
It was the third Corso.
Maybe Han eats his thermal detonator.
oh, I
It's
got a
just
rock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got a rock. Yeah, so you do mention that this is the famous shower scene. Not since Psycho has there been a shower scene this controversial. Yeah, it is
It's
weird.
very intimate.
It is weird that the hauler has a shower. That to me seems like even more of a stretch than the Lightspeed bit.
To have actual like a water tank.
Yeah,
Like it's
Right.
got stored water on it to be able to have a shower.
Although, was this specifically outfitted for use on Mimbem, where they knew that everybody coming in was going to get muddy, and so in between runs, did they set up like a cargo area to basically be a shower and load it up with water so that they knew to cut down on other thing, or would they just have that at the? I don't know. Yeah, I can buy it.
It's not,
I can buy it if it was specifically outfitted. Originally I had to note why does it have a shower, but now I'm like, if it's specifically outfitted for use on Mimban,
All right.
maybe.
That's
Yeah, it's like
good enough.
maybe it's like the space shuttle. There's different areas
they also
where they can
say
plug in
that-
different things.
that
Modular.
in the book
Yeah.
it also says that this thing is outfitted to be remotely controlled.
Hmm.
So it sounds like it not necessarily even there doesn't need to be a crew on there at all.
Hmm.
So would it not have all of these amenities because you could run it without having a crew?
Well, one thing it does explain is why Han and Chewie, why they shower together. Because if it's basically
Limited
like an
supplies.
RV, if it's like an RV where you only have so much water, then that does
Mm.
make sense that they would need to go together at least. So,
Well,
But
although it's
Chewbacca seems
high-tech.
very insistent about no.
well, he's establishing dominance also.
Yeah, he just basically wants to go first, and Han's already in there, and he doesn't
Dominance,
care.
dominance or affection. Come on. Maybe he's just no. You're my pet now.
A little bit of both.
You're-
Well, but even with a pet, you got to show dominance. You have to be the You gotta be
Right.
the one
Yeah. Every time my
pull
cat
the
is in the
Just-
shower, I just go in
Just
there
because
and
they
stand
cut the chain off doesn't mean that we're not still connected.
there. Right. That's what he wanted to let him know.
So also, when Chewie gets out, first of all, like I assume there are towels on board.
Or a heck of a blow dryer. 'Cause
Right.
Well, that's what does he
A
does he
Dyson
just
Airblade.
does he just air? Well, the one thing I think that I really like about the ship is that it has that. You can kind of see when it's flying. It has almost like a deck that's like hanging beneath that you can stand on.
We
So
do see it later,
theoretically.
right? They're
do you think
big.
this opened
Yeah.
it to space and it just...
Well, I mean, at least when they're in the atmosphere, maybe Chewie could just go to a warm place and Chewie could just air dry, while they're still in the atmosphere and stuff.
Well, no,
but-
they get out of there pretty... We see them leaving the atmosphere before we see the shower scene. Because we see
right,
the
but then they go to
battle ongoing.
Vandor. Then they're on Vandor, and
Where-
we don't know
where
how
it's
long.
cold, though.
Right, but anyway, all right.
Yes.
So fine.
No,
we
I
can't
like-
use it.
I
It's
like your
another
idea.
plot hole. Your win. You guys are both right.
I like your idea. I also want to know are Han's clothes in the wash now, or was he wearing those clothes like his?
Well, no, he'd be wearing, I guess, whatever the undersuit for your standard trooper would be. So are those just like whatever civilian clothes are stashed on a...
Maybe, yeah. That's what, because soon we see him wearing clothes, right? So
Yeah,
where did those?
weird.
Did he just ditch the Imperial outfit and he's wearing something else soon, or what?
Well,
We'll
maybe
find out.
maybe they did stop somewhere on the way where
They went to the mall
you can buy new clothes and put more water, etc.
and they stole. That
Yeah.
would be a whole scene. Like they do like a, like a scam to get some.
Maybe
clothes
that's
out
where
of
they
a
got the
store.
hair dryer.
Like, do they have like luggage with them and stuff?
The crew, not
Yeah.
Han and Chewie. Han and Chewie definitely don't.
No,
Has-
Han and Chewie definitely don't. But
What-
like, does Beckett? Do they
Well,
have
we
like
see
bags
Beckett
with-
again. Have they already... Is he out of his like dead Imperial officer uniform?
Yes.
So he's changed clothes
So
as
he
well.
changed clothes.
I bet that they have a cargo, like a standard Imperial cargo unit or something like that. Like there's like a steamer trunk or like a,
Or they
So
have
they
like their
brought it
load-
with
their
them.
go
They brought it
bag.
with them.
yeah. I don't know
Okay,
how.
so like when they anyway. Korso.
Because they've all changed clothes. Because they were all in their Imperial disguises while they
fake
were down on the
Imperial.
planet.
Yeah.
So I think they have a trunk of stuff to go with them.
The
And
only one
maybe-
who's dressed underneath is Rio. Because Rio just takes off the
Right.
Imperial outfit and has his normal clothes underneath.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So another mystery is how.
But Beckett's got his overcoat and everything, and
Mhm.
Yeah.
you can't have that underneath everything.
I like that his fake captain outfit looked pretty much the same way he dresses. The big long duster jacket and
Well, that's why you
Yeah.
picked it, right?
yeah, I guess so. But
Also, who wears a duster on a mud planet?
he should be wearing a mutter. Man's best friend is his mutter. I always say.
Yes,
Yeah.
I want to know. We have to keep an eye on whether if Woody had gone straight to the police, would Val still be alive? So if they leave the Corporal Solo and the Wookiee on the planet,
Would the mission have succeeded?
or at least would Val still be alive, whether or not it succeeds?
Hmm.
Well, keep that in mind. Also, that just made me think. We've seen him as Corporal Solo. We've seen him as Captain Solo. We've seen him as General Solo.
Hmm.
All right. Are there any other?
We'd never seen him as Major Solo.
No.
Any other titles we could award him? You mean
Right.
Reverend Solo?
Yeah. Different Admiral Solo. I don't know. We'll have to keep, because I can't think of him like in that cutscene where he's flying a TIE fighter. Do they call him Cadet or anything like that? I'll have to look.
Cadet Solo.
They
I do
they
like the
call
shot
him
Private
that Solo,
Solo.
don't they?
Private Solo is redundant.
when I do like the shot when they're leaving Mimban and they're kind of like flying over the battlefield and you just see all the kind of smoke and
The actual
mist,
battle still going
and then
on.
you see
And
like
those ties flying by, and
yeah,
Mhm.
I think I generally like any aerial shots of battles in Star Wars. I can't think of any that I'm like, oh, like it's.
is that the
it's-
first time that we've seen like an atmospheric battle going on in live action Star Wars?
I mean, I guess some
I mean-
of like the battle of the Attack of
Scarif?
the Clones.
Eh,
Well, Attack of
and-
the Clones had them in that dust.
Oh, right. No, yeah.
So there
Right.
was some, but this we've never seen
Yeah,
them like in a
Maz's
swamp.
castle. There's a battle. There's a battle at Maz's castle.
That's true, yeah.
Um.
But yeah, always fan of battles from above,
mhm.
aerial views, I guess they call them.
Right.
But also not very good airspace management when it comes to the Empire.
They're
on this
terrible.
whole
Yeah,
They're
any
thing.
other
terrible at,
Battles. Like you
at
just have this,
battling.
just have this rogue AT hauler just heading out. No one's hailing them or like, hey, you know the battle's down here. Where are you going?
Do you want to
I
pick
could
up some more AT-STs?
Yeah, I gotta go
Yeah.
get some more.
Did you guys want the
AT-ATs.
gorilla ones or the other ones or the chicken ones? What
Yeah,
kind of walkers are you looking for?
You want a knuckle walker? What do you
Right.
need? What do you want?
Somebody said they needed a stevedore.
A knuckle walker.
I'm going out to get a change of clothes.
Right.
I'll be back.
So anything else for minute number 25?
I think that's pretty much it that I had.
Or I guess, or Ken, if you want to, any other solo stuff in general you want to get off your chest while you're here?
We
How do you
did
feel
mention
about L3.
they do say this
Trust
is
me.
where they do say the muscle. Well, we could use some muscle on a job like this, which is what
yeah, you
they
were going
had
to mention
Korso.
the deleted.
Yeah,
So-
they had
so
Korso
Korso
with
was-
their crew. Korso died, and then Chewbacca's the new muscle. So
And
that's-
Korso was a human?
yes,
Korso was a man?
Korso was a man.
So he was just like a regular
He's a
strong
big
man.
man. What?
He was no Wookiee. He's not
He
like
was
a,
no Wookiee. No.
So, a
So,
Wookiee
if,
doesn't
so if you
usually
had
remember.
that context, Rio's statement about we could really use some muscle,
Yeah.
It's because their muscle just died.
Yeah.
making a much stronger argument for picking up these randos that they just encountered.
Right.
This
It's-
is where
it's-
Han Solo got the idea of going on adventures with a bunch of people.
I get, it's where the sort of patchwork of this movie occasionally rears its head, where you can see the seams of the two different films in an attempt to make a film in the end from all these disparate pieces
Mhm.
shine through, where you're like, okay, well, maybe this was one draft away from being a film that felt completely organic from start to finish. Like, this seems like the fix version of it,
Mhm.
rather than the, okay, let's polish it.
Right.
Which, I think Lord Miller had already filmed half of the movie by the time the changeover happened. So, and those deleted scenes show wildly different things happening at the start of the film.
Eels and garbage.
And just you mentioning that cadet solo
Eels and
scene
garbage.
of him being drummed out,
Mm-hmm.
ends on the joke line of, we'll get you, you'll be flying soon, leading into the ground battle that eventually is replaced by the recruiter,
Right.
making that setup line for the
Right.
transition, which shows that was a reshoot to make that when they cut out the cadet stuff.
Or at least they just had that. Right. They just added that
It'd be
afterwards.
weird for the repetition.
Look at you
of-
flying soon. Like,
But yeah, I look forward to the day that we finally find out what exactly happened.
Right.
Because we really didn't get the candor of the original films until the Rinsler books, sometimes 30, 35 years later, when they started coming out and doing this sort of definitive, unvarnished history of the production of the original films.
I mean, I think there's still some varnish. That's the thing. We have basically people need to, and I don't mean this to sound cold, but once people start dying,
Yeah, well, but I will also say, as far as a difference in Lucas and sort of Disney corporate culture,
right?
is that Lucas was not concerned with covering those things up. Like,
Right.
I don't think there's anything about the production that Lucas was afraid of people. Like, if there were disagreements or there were changes, I don't think he cared one way or the other.
Right.
I think he was fine with people knowing what
Yeah.
was
Well,
going on.
and there was nothing as dramatic as a director being replaced mid-movie or anything like that. So
Right, but even hiccups like that, or the story stuff, or even, I think certainly Lucas developed his own narrative of the creation of Star Wars and the concepts and the character arcs within it that does not jive with what actually was brought to the table by different people,
Right.
like Lee Brackett. But he never stopped anyone from telling the truth either, or telling their version of events the way that Disney and Lucasfilm seem to now. Like the fact that we're, 5 years out from this movie and Lord and Miller still have not just definitively said, yeah, this is what we did. This is what our version of it was. This is the difference. I mean, it's no skin off anyone's nose, you would think, to tell the tale of what happened during this. It's not going to change the film at this point.
Well, I'm sure Disney doesn't want to encourage like what ifism. You know what I mean?
But
They
it's
don't
the
want.
second
Yeah.
time this happened with them. I mean, it obviously didn't have the deleterious effect at the box office that Solo had, but Rogue One underwent just as dramatic changes in its production. It just worked out fine,
Right.
as opposed to what happened with Solo.
Well, I mean, I don't know.
It's weird, we see it again and again in this era, is that there's massive retoolings of the story content. We talked a little bit, I think it was off thing in between days about Book of Boba Fett having that sort of feel of, hey, there were probably some changes that happened narratively and adjustments to this that feel a bit clunky. And, certainly the tales of Rise of Skywalker have been leaked out. So
Yeah.
all I'm saying is I would love to read at some point the Kasdan's Lord Miller draft, the shooting script, as
sure.
we were going in to this to
Someday.
see what it was.
Like, I think, like we kind of in the future when we know, like we said, the relevant parties have passed on or are no longer in the biz or.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you think, did they submit any, the only one that I know for sure submitted
For sure.
the only one that submitted a draft of the script for consideration for the Academy Awards was Last Jedi. Do we think that other ones might have submitted drafts for consideration? Because then they would be accessible potentially once that library opens back up.
I'm interested in there would have been, this was probably decided before it ever got to that point, but you could have gone into an arbitration discussion about how much of Lord Miller went into the Kasdan's draft of that initial version of the film and how they were eventually credited. Because I think at the end of the day, aren't they just credited as executive producers on it? Because I know the threshold director-wise is it has to be at over the 50% threshold,
right?
Which is why they went in for a bunch of reshoots. And I only know that because that ties into the whole thing that happened with Richard Donner on Superman 2.
Right.
And, scenes that didn't need to be refilmed being refilmed just to get over that threshold.
Wow.
Of 50% replacement. So, yeah, I wonder how much of that was changed. And the Kasdans talk about story elements, like in that thing you were talking about earlier in the week, Pete, about that 57 facts about Solo or whatever it was.
Yeah.
That Jake Kasdan put out about
John.
I
made that mistake earlier too.
A lot of story elements
Mm-hmm.
that Lord Miller brought to the table to be developed in the script.
Right.
Into the script.
How do you feel about Lando? How do you feel about Glover as
Donald
Lando?
Glover?
Yeah.
I found it easier to accept right off the bat his Lando than Alden's Han.
Interesting.
And I'm
What
not
the
sure.
difference is.
And I'm not, we obviously saw much less of Lando in the original films.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a different confidence or just the way Lando as a character inherently has swagger that makes you buy it a lot easier. Like the Lando we see in this is basically the same Lando that we see in Empire Strikes Back. Like he has the charm, he has the swagger.
Cape.
It's Lando. Lando's arc is not as great as young Han Solo and what we see in A New Hope. So maybe it was easier to buy at that point. Or maybe it's the fact that you don't see him until halfway through the film, that by that point you're just rolling to whatever Kool-Aid Solo is insisting you drink, that you're like, okay, sure. So no, ultimately, or maybe just an inherent knowledge and like of Donald Glover as a performer that made it easier to handle that. But I enjoyed it. I'm curious to see what they do with the Disney Plus series, if it's, some weird flashbacky thing where we're seeing two different time periods of young Lando and old Lando. As he's out in the galaxy looking around for stuff. Or was he with his maybe granddaughter going to go look for his maybe kid. I don't know. That whole thing, I don't know what's happening with that. But I could see them setting up a framing device whereby we have Lando in the sequel period and flashing back to Lando pre A New Hope.
Right.
Yeah. I was going to go the opposite way. I was going to have Donald Glover provide the narration, and then the adventures would be older.
One day I'm going to be old.
Here's how I picture it going.
Let me tell you tales of me as an old man.
Well, I do love, I'm thinking now, because they introduced that gimmick of him kind of recording, the adventures of Lando Calrissian.
Space Diary.
And so it could be then later,
him listening back to
old man Lando kind of like reading that back to some kids or whatever.
Yeah.
So basically they're just in the ship on their quest listening to audiobooks.
Yes. And then we see we see the visualization.
Finally
of the
Star Wars incorporates podcasts in canon.
I know somebody that could, if they need some actors to do some, play some Star Wars podcasters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I think you're going to be you can't tell me that was a Tag and Bink?
Right.
Tag and Bink.
Mm-hmm.
That they totally started a podcast eventually, right?
Mm-hmm.
Didn't they must have started.
They were almost like podcasts
together
before they even were
right?
They presaged podcasts.
Well, they accidentally stumbled into it, right? That's the whole deal. That
they accidentally invented
recorded some stuff, and then it ended up being a podcast.
Yeah, it's the after effect.
They invented the term too, because they recorded their things and put it in an escape pod and sent it.
Mm.
And then we threw this corporal down with this Wookiee in this pit of Mimban. And this whole thing went down, and that was a whole other thing. Took us a week to get out of there.
So, Han, who are your people?
So, I have a question for you before we go.
Me or for Alex?
For both of you.
Okay.
Is how fundamentally, if at all, different is your feelings about this film with some distance and having to rewatch it for this process?
Well, it's funny you should mention that because just, I think 2 days ago, I sat down and we started this project.
Watched it for the first time.
Well, it's the first time I've watched it on home video. I've not watched it at home since the movie came out.
Even though it's been available on digital and Blu-ray since...
That one plus.
I rewatched it for the first time on home video, and it definitely feels... feels almost like it I know I just said the word presage, but it almost feels like it presages the TV era of Star Wars. It feels like a kind of not low budget, but it just feels kind of cheaper than a Star Wars movie for some reason. And
cheaper or smaller?
Smaller, but just kind of like there's no space battles.
The stakes are smaller.
Yeah, just even it takes place at like just rooms and things like that. So it looks like it's done on a lower budget than a typical Star Wars movie to me. Like a lot of smoke and stuff to kind of cover up.
It's like the Star Trek of Star Wars.
Kind of. When I watched it in that context, I enjoyed it more, as if like this is just a scrappy little film that's trying to tell an entertaining Star Wars story, as opposed to this is a movie event that I'm going to. Putting it in that context made me appreciate its modest charms better than.
Did you like it when you first saw it in the theater?
No, I was disappointed in it, and it seemed, who cared? Which to some extent I still agree with, but that's the, viewing it as a TV show, who cares? But like, no, it's like Boba Fett. Okay, so some stuff was not as good in it, but there was some okay stuff in it, and there's going to be another thing down the pike in 2 weeks or whatever. So,
is there anything you'd like to see come out of it? Like you generally like that was great, and I want to see more of that.
I think a Han, an Alden Ehrenreich, and Lando team up show, I would be totally fine with that, and I think their lives are well suited to having episodic adventures and so on, and so I would love a series of, if you don't want to do it as even a series of standalone 90-minute adventures. That's what I'd like to see.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Pete?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it then, and I like it more, I think, every time I see it. This movie.
What aspects do you like the most? Do you share that opinion? Like you'd want to see it spun out?
You're
'Cause it
very
clearly was-
anti-spin-off, right?
It clearly was
Generally.
intended to be the start of a series
Yeah.
Right.
of films.
Right, or at least, that I would like to see it revisited in some aspect. But again, especially now that the heavy lifting of, like, okay, we have to explain almost everything. There's still a couple of things that they could be like, oh, we have to explain how we got this and how we did this.
Scar on his chin,
Scar on
still
his
unaccounted
chin,
for.
How he gets his vest, we didn't see those things, but
His gloves, his poop gloves.
poop gloves. Other than that, yeah, so I would like to see it free of that. Just like going back to John Carter, I would love to see them go back and do I was excited for the sequels more so than the establishing ones. Normally I'm a get the band together. I like the first chapter of stories like this, but I also then would like to see what happens later, and I would like to see them revisit.
Get a chance
this.
to play in the world that was built.
Right, and I want to see. I want something more akin to the old Brian Daley Han Solo adventures, and I feel like they could have done that if they had just made more of these, and they could still, but. There's a movement to make Solo 2 happen, all that stuff. But I don't know.
Certainly the character of Kira has continued on beyond this.
I feel like the weakest parts of the film are where it is reverential about Star Wars. Like when they show close-ups of Han Solo holding his gun that he just got, or when he first goes on the Falcon. When he first goes on the Falcon, he's walking around looking at it, and the music is all, like this is the magical moment that we've all been waiting for. But it's
that chicken and the egg prequel thing.
It just feels misplaced. Like this should just be a guy getting on a ship, and they're going out there. You should pay no more attention to it.
I want a ship. This is my. I'm gonna have this ship one day. I want to shoot my way through.
It should be like Luke getting on the Falcon in Star Wars, which is like nothing. Like we don't see Luke's reaction to being like, "Whoa, look at this!" I feel like those are the weakest parts.
It has
where it's
3 bathrooms.
Yeah. So
presumably there's a shower on the Falcon too.
Yeah, a refresher, I think they call them.
I thought that's the bathroom though. The toilet is the refresher.
Do you think from this point forward that he and Chewie continued to shower together? Do you think that was just establishing it as a thing?
Save water. They did come out of the 70s where that was a much more encouraged thing.
Like, well, we set the precedent. He won't shower without me now.
That also that would have been fun seeing Harrison Ford do that.
Right. This again.
My view of the film has softened over time. I think you go in with an expectation on something like this, and as you said, Alex, this weird sort of mental disconnect that you have to try and deal with when it comes to this is Han Solo now.
Mm-hmm.
For this film, this is Han Solo. And getting into the groove, and I think there's an issue I have. I think there's sometimes knowing too much about how the sausage is made, to where I knew that there were problems with this. I knew that Lord and Miller were thrown off. I had never been a huge fan of Ron Howard as a filmmaker, and I had always seen his stuff as serviceable but rather pedestrian. And and certainly his storytelling approach also seemed rather bland to me. So I had low expectations of what he would bring to it compared to why you bring a Lord and Miller into it. So I kind of was already ready to be disappointed when I went into it. And, in a lot of ways, it delivered on that. And so I found it difficult in that first viewing in a theater opening night to enjoy the things that it did okay and did well. And I think it does hold up a lot better as a home video viewing, where all of that, what seeing something in a theater and an expectation that brings burdens a film with, having that gone, I think has serviced this film well for me now. Right. That I'm fine revisiting it or just skimming to the parts that I want to see or the parts that work. So yeah, no, I think it's one of those that really does benefit from being unburdened from the theatrical. And I would love to see now, sure, explore it more as a Disney Plus series. Bring them back. Don't have all of this expectation of it being like a $250 million or whatever dollar production it wound up being, with all of this broken history to it. To just go and play with these characters, because there's stories to tell with them. There's fun to be had. And you've gotten over the initial audience disconnect of he's Han, and Chewie's just gonna look like Chewie, no matter what.
For the most part.
So go with it and have fun at this point. So, yeah, I think as you get closer, though, then it's gonna be weird. It's like, well, we're like a year before A New Hope. He looks nothing like him. Now it's getting weird again.
Well, we're not gonna worry about that for stuff like lightsaber technique and.
All I want to see is his first meeting with Jabba. Going to get his first job.
Right.
He's a fresh young smuggler, out on his own, no Beckett.
I want to see Bollocks and Blue Max.
Yeah, let's have all the fun now.
Blue Max is not Max Rebo.
No.
That's different Blue Max.
Yeah, that's Max's
and it's
sad
not
cousin.
The commander of the Blue Meanies, not the second in command of the Blue Meanies.
It's true. Well, if we've hit Yellow Submarine, that must mean it's time for us to set sail and leave the episode. Thanks, Ken, for joining us all this week. Anything else you want to plug before we wrap it up?
No, just go check out, the Patreon would be nice. Patreon.com/Ken Plume. We're just a bit of a chat. The podcast is still going and still with a lot of great guests and fun. And yeah, that's it. That's it. At Ken Plume on Twitter. The place to find all of it.
Well, hey, yeah. You know what? We're on Twitter, too. Pete, isn't that correct? At Star Wars Minute. Pete, what's your private? What's your, not private, but what's your personal handle?
I'm Pete the Retailer on Twitter.
I'm Alex Robinson.
And this is
Star Wars Minute.
Star Wars Minute.
Ooh.